Okay, Assalamu alaikum. Good evening, everyone. On behalf of my team at LUMSx, I would like to extend a warm welcome. My name is Noorul Suhail, and I am your host for today's session. For those of you who aren't familiar with LUMSx, I'd like to begin by explaining what we do as a center. LUMSx is an online gateway to learning and professional development. We offer digital learning products to bridge critical skill gaps for Pakistani learners. We aim to use technology for enhancing access, improving educational quality, and amplifying education's impact. As a center, we also intend to initiate and meaningfully inform discourse about the intersection of education and technology, and our EdTech Baithak Series is one way to achieve this. This series is designed to bring together stakeholders and experts who are passionate about leveraging technology to enhance learning. We aim to do this by inviting thought leaders from various fields related to online education to share their experiences, innovations, and visions for the future of learning. For our inaugural session for this series today, we are honored to have Dr. Ben Leong from the National University of Singapore. Dr. Leong earned his bachelor's, master's, and doctoral degrees from MIT in the years 1997 and 2006, respectively. He is currently an associate professor of computer science at the National University of Singapore. Since 2006, he has been teaching programming methodology and advanced software engineering to undergraduates. Over the years, he was recognized for excellent teaching with a number of teaching awards, including the National University of Singapore Outstanding Educator Award in 2015. He also served as the chair of the CS Department Standing Teaching Committee from 2017 to 2020. In 2020, Dr. Leong was appointed Chief Data Officer of AISG, Singapore's national AI program, and he is currently director of the AI Center for Educational Technologies. In 2020, he set up the Center for Computing for Social Good and Philanthropy for the School of Computing and currently serves as the director. In his talk today, Dr. Leong will delve into how educators can navigate the challenges of an AI-driven future successfully, a topic that aligns with the ethos of our series. Dr. Leong's talk promises to provide valuable insights into addressing concerns related to job displacement and student apprehension in the context of AI's impact on education. The session will be followed by an engaging Q&A session, offering you the opportunity to directly interact with Dr. Leong and explore further the topics discussed during the talk. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Ben Leong.
All right, first, thank you for the generous introduction, and I'm very grateful to be here in this beautiful campus. I was just telling Zatesh, thank you Zatesh for inviting me today, to be visiting you today, and it's been really wonderful to be here. Right, so as it was said, I am from Singapore, which is not very far away. In fact, we're about 7 hours by flight, okay, and it's a real privilege to be here today. So, okay, we all know this happened, right? This is ChatGPT. It happened last year, November, right? They released, and that really caused quite a lot of concern, right? I mean, this is statistics they give. Basically, ChatGPT can do better than many humans, right? In the exams, SAT, right? And interestingly, this is actually a real question from real students that I'm not leaving the name out because I'm afraid of embarrassing anybody. I can't remember who asked this, and it's not one student. Interestingly, I had a bunch of LUMS students come to this afternoon for office hours, and this is one of the questions that came up. Okay, before we start, if you don't mind, just do a quick show of hands. Who are faculty? Only two. Okay, so two profs. Who are students presently? Mostly students.
There are also non-faculty staff.
Okay, non-faculty staff. Great. Non-faculty staff, non-profs, non-students, non-faculty staff. Anybody? Okay, so the three groups of people here, two faculty members, some students, and some non-faculty staff, right? Okay, so the students, right? Why are the students asking this question? Well, I can tell you why, okay? Before that, just do a quick poll. How many of the students here are using ChatGPT for your homework?
You are asking them in front of us?
No, it's okay. I'm trying to check, right, how many honest people we have at LUMS, right? Okay, we have 3 honest gentlemen at the back. Okay, how cool is that, right? No, not too bad, okay?
Can you ask that question again?
Okay. Anyway, okay, so I talked to the students, and they're quite honest. The sad truth, like it or not, is that they're all using ChatGPT, okay? And why are they worried about this question? Because some of them, these geniuses, have gone, cut and paste our homework questions into ChatGPT, and they realize they get the answer, right? And so now they're all very worried okay, and have your attention, right? Because you're all very worried, right? That one day they will grow up, graduate here, have no jobs. Is that correct? Okay, good. So that is why I'm answering this question that I think you guys care about, right? All right, so let me give you the punchline before we start. I think it's not a problem. Okay, but at least at NUS as a prof, I'm convinced that we don't have a problem, okay? And the way that I'm going about today to explain to you why I think this way is to tell you some stories. So today, instead of this boring lecture, I'll just tell you some stories which people like to hear. Right? So I'll just tell 3 stories today, okay? First story is this. Is that I think one of the things that we have done correctly and well at NUS is that we have ensured that our teaching keeps up with the real world, okay? Let me tell you, okay, this is history for you. You know this guy, right? Okay, it's a bit blur. This guy is called Mark Zuckerberg, right? And for those that didn't realize, Yahoo tried to buy Facebook for $1 billion. Mark said no, okay? And Mark actually took $250 million from Microsoft, valuing Facebook at $50 million USD, right? So this is 2007, okay? And this is actually a poster that we found. Someone posted on a wall at my school, which says, you know, why not you, right? It's a good question, right? All right, so I was thinking to myself, okay, what is it that's keeping our students from being the mark, right? And I realized at that point that what was missing, okay, in our students, because sadly, profs are not very practical, right? I mean, okay, I don't want to sound like I'm complaining about colleagues, but generally they have exams, right? But the exams don't translate to real stuff, right? So I found at that point, right, that the students didn't know web programming, okay? They didn't have much opportunity to do interdisciplinary collaborations, and they lacked practical experience, right? Okay, so this is 2007, right? And basically, there's a lack of soft skills in general. Okay, that's what I felt. Then, okay, you guys know this guy? Yes. It's a very famous prof, okay? Prof. Randy Pausch, CMU, right? On 18th of September 2007, he gave this lecture, a very famous lecture called Last Lecture. Okay, and I watched it on YouTube because this one of the things that happened, right? Unfortunately, you know, Randy is now passed away, but he has a book. Okay, in case you're wondering, I have this book, right? There's a book that you can buy. Okay, but the whole gist, one of the things he said in his last lecture was that CMU, he had this class called Building Virtual Worlds, right? And he talked about how he ran the class, and it was all very cool. Okay, but I don't do animation, I don't do HCI, right? But I build software. Okay, so what I did was that I started this class, okay, called Software Development on Evolving Platforms, okay, and I don't know how many of you were I mean, most of you are very young. 2007 was, 2008 was when Facebook had this Facebook games, right? There was this like vampire game when you bite each other or something, you know, and throw cows, right? Okay, so there was a point whereby Facebook had these games, and I started this class, and the point was to get my students to build these games, right? And after they had this semester and it was quite nasty, as in Randy, talked about his class, and it's really like intensive and nasty. I did the same thing at US, and they suffered. Okay, now at the end of the class, right? What I made them do was to do this kind of a road show. So we had this poster session, right? And there were like 10 groups of students, and then I had them set up these posters and had people come by, and see their work. Now it's very important because this actually what inspires passion, right? It means the students do their work, and they get to show off their friends, their mothers, whatever, they come and see, right? So this worked very well, okay? Now let me show you another picture. So this is actually similar thing 2 weeks ago, okay? So today, okay, when we started in 2007, 2008, right, there was one class, my class, 10 posters. Now we have annual projects fair whereby 6 or 7 classes at US, they present posters. So this is a huge issue. Okay, you see one part of the school, but this is like a 2,000 people event, there are like 50, 60 project groups. We cater food, it's a whole party. So every semester now we have this major party. This is important because 2 things, right? It actually makes the students do projects that are practical, right? It actually gives them a chance to show off projects to their friends. We also invite people from the industry, right? So it's actually good for the school as well because it makes the school look good and make us look like we know what we're doing, right? We do know what we're doing. So there are 3 key lessons that we try to teach in this class, okay? First lesson is that sales matter. So this is one problem with our students, our CS students, is think that, you write the best software, money will come. Absolute nonsense, right? You can write crap for software, you can still make money, right? Yeah, so one of the lessons, a few lessons we want to teach is that sales matters a lot, right? So that's why we also made them do the poster sessions. People matter because really, I mean, these days, maybe when Bill Gates was, creating Microsoft, you can write, programs in the garage and sell them. These days, yes, really, it's a team sport, right? So you need to work with people, right? And then execution matters as well. So these are 3 lessons that we try to teach the students. And the kind of theme is to build projects that actually make a difference. How do you want to do that? We leave it to them, right? So this is what we did back then, okay? So this was back then, 2008, right? Well, this is now. What are we doing now? Today, okay, this is the project that we just had 2 weeks ago. So the students, instead of, they still build web apps, they still do build apps. But right now, from this year onwards, they're actually building apps that use the GPT APIs, right? So this is a project which automatically creates these projects that are suitable for kids. So it's actually a child goes up to this program, right? He types in, there's some prompts, he asks them what he likes. And then they were able to use GPT, right, to generate projects that are suitable for the kids. All right, so this is really quite cool. I mean, this is one of the many this year. So this basically is something that we did, okay? So the lesson here is that the students need to know that what they do can make a difference, okay? And what they learn matters, right? Because there was a lot of complaints that a lot of theory, not practice, okay? And then in this case, given what our experience, the GPT actually is really an opportunity, right? I think that there are still many things that GPT can do that the students can try. Right, and so this is something that we've done in school. Okay, that's my question, that's our story number 1. The next thing is that many years ago when I was young, as a young prof, I think we made the same mistake. We think that teaching is about transferring knowledge. But after a while, we realized that's not true, right? And this is LUMS, right? You guys are the smartest kids in Pakistan, right? Frankly, if the kids want to learn, they're done already, right? Okay. So actually, at the good schools in the old world, the key is not so much to teach them, but to inspire them to learn, right? Okay. So in this 2010, right? I'm teaching. Okay. I was telling Zatesh that I'm actually one of the I would say the local resident experts in teaching intro programming. I was teaching this class for the 5th time in 2010. I was thinking, okay, what can I do anymore, right? After 5 times, I've done everything I can do. How can we do better? Okay, what can we do better, right? And interestingly, there was this talk that I saw on TED. Okay, there's this game developer, Jay McGonigal, okay, who created this game thing that inspired people to do good things, to do some kind of social change. I'm like, okay. Interestingly, I'm a prof, so the kind of the first thing. The first reaction is really, seriously, does it really work? Okay, so I actually doubted this for a while, but because I'm a scientist, right? So I doubt, does it work? How do I know? I try it, okay? So, and at the same time, I was grappling with this problem, okay, which is actually very simple, right? We give the students problem sets, okay? We give them normally, what kind? 2 weeks to do it, right? Okay. When did they start? Around here. Okay, this is around 2 days. Okay, so I invented this law called the Balance Law of Procrastination, which says that X doesn't matter as long as it's more than 2. Right? And what happens is that they don't. Okay, some start late, they finish on time. Some cannot finish and they copy from their friends. This is sounds familiar. I mean, I'm not sure. Maybe LUMS is better.
Are you a LUMS teacher?
Okay, so anyway, this is the problem that we had, right? So I'm like,
Sitting here.
Okay, so anyway, this was what I had. I had problem sets, right? And it was quite kind, right? We give them 7 problem sets. You get to drop the worst one and so forth. And what I did was I took these problem sets and I converted into a game system, right? How does it work? Well, basically, if you do so the missions are the homeworks that you need to do, right? You finish that, you get EXP, okay? Then I have side quests, which are optional homeworks, right? You do that, you get EXP, okay? We have contests, okay? And then you do that, you get EXP. Okay, they come to class, huh? I'm not sure, okay, maybe your kids come to class, right? But they come to class, whoo, they get EXP, right? And then, okay, so we also have forums, right? So we want to encourage them to post questions. We want to encourage them to answer questions. They do that, they get EXP, okay? What happens? Well, you level up, right? Okay, and it turns out that, okay, so I'm not sure how you do it, but generally, most schools, they have components for homework, At the end of the semester, you have this weighted average, and that's your CA grade, right? Oh no, that's all gone. So today, right, my students' CA grade is the level they get in my class. Okay, and then I actually built this whole entire comic system. It's really cool, right? and that worked. Okay, so let me tell you what happened. Okay, so basically, because I've done this for many years, I can compute, right? How often? I mean, what's the average time where students submit their homework before the deadline, right? And it turns out it's 15.5 hours before it's due. Okay, so after I introduced the gaming system, how much do you think it's? How do this change? Anybody? Guesses? Sir, ma'am, miss?
Maybe in days.
I mean, in hours? I mean, how many hours? More or less?
Let's say 30.
Must be more, right? I mean, you want them to finish earlier, right? So what's the number? 30. Anybody else? 45. Anybody else?
30, 35.
No, let's go higher. 45, right? So it goes to the lady, 45, right? Okay. It turns out 51. Okay, and as every teacher, you know that this is, okay, sorry, this is definitely statistically significant. I mean, you agree with me, right? Okay, so from finishing less than a day before to finishing 2+ days ahead, right? We know it makes a difference, and I don't have to do statistics for you,
And
right?
This is average.
This is the average.
There are
I
a lot of
agree.
people who are on the
Yeah,
average.
correct. So on the whole, we have definitely moved the curve, right? And actually, feedback, okay, some didn't like it, some okay, but the vast majority thought it was great. Okay, and frankly, on the ground, it worked very well. Okay, so today I have this platform. Okay, this is actually a screenshot of my class from last week. I actually have this thing for real in my classes, and it actually works like a charm. And I'm telling you the most amazing part, and why I think I'm quite a genius for doing this, because we have this thing called surveys, right? You do surveys? Well, I do midterm surveys, right? I survey the students. Well, in the past, I used to have to chase the students and spam them, right, to get them to reply. In the new system, I give them 50 EXP. I can tell you the number exactly. And guess what? I have 95% compliance. And you know how much is 50 EXP? Well, total EXP is like 20,000. Right? So I give them like this pittance of EXP, and they won't let's just do this for me. I'm like, that's the most genius thing I've done for a long time, right? Okay. So really, the system actually does work, and the systems will actually behave. Cosmology is the system we built, right? It's actually, you can use it if you are keen, right? So that's that. Okay, then another thing happened. I mean, you know this happened, right? Okay. Okay, so how else can we do better, right? Okay. So let me do a quick confession. As a prof, I'm quite ashamed to say that actually what we do, because of no choice, is that we teach the median student, right? We can't teach the fastest ones, because if we teach the fastest ones, then they're all lost. We teach the slowest one, then frankly, nothing happens, right? So we kind of suck it up and we do our best, teach the median students. But what does that really mean? It means that by design, we are leaving half them behind, you know. I mean, sorry, I mean, of course, because normally we are not so honest, right? I'm a very honest guy, right? Okay, but sadly, forced by circumstances, because we need to finish the class, right? We teach the median student, because it means that by design, we have actually designed it such that half the students will struggle, okay? And if they start struggling, then they can't catch up, right? So quickly, this is how we normally think of our teaching, right? We have a few weeks. Every week, we teach a topic, okay? And this is how we design the curriculum. Now, what happens is that there's an exam at the end, right? That's how it works, right? So you have different students, okay? So student A potentially can take a bit more than what you expect to learn the first topic, right? And then maybe this is how long it takes to learn the second and so forth. And interestingly, basically, you can actually predict, based on what he's done so far, how long it's going to take. And this guy, you think he's in trouble because it's going to take more time, okay? But then he goes on, and interestingly, okay, he finishes on time. Good, this is the median student. So this is the guy that we designed the class for. But you can have a student B, right? And he can start off like this, and then it goes like this, and this kid is the fast one. So it's good, no problem at all, right? The problem is student C, okay? He starts off really fast, okay? But then along the way, he sort of runs out of steam, right? And he's in trouble, because to be honest, if you actually let him learn at the right pace, he cannot finish in time. And by the time he's the exam, frankly, he's going to do badly. So how, right? Well, we actually built a system that can allow us to do this, right? So if you learn fast, okay, what happens is that the system will give you your lectures earlier. So normally you have lectures on Monday, right? So if Zatesh is a really good student, he submits all his homework by the Tuesday, then instead of twiddling thumbs between Wednesday to the next Sunday, maybe he will see the lecture on Saturday, right? And then he finishes his homework by Sunday, the next lecture will come on Thursday, right? So basically, if you are really fast, you will have the timeline shortened and you can learn faster, okay? On the other hand, if you start, basically having homework overdue, you can't keep up, right? If we keep the class at the same pace, it's going to snowball, right? You're never going to catch up, okay? So we let these kids take a longer time. But then he goes past the exam. Then how? Well, we have another exam now. So we actually have a system for 2 years where we allow the students to have this kind of a pace, and then the ones that are slower, we actually set an extra exam for them 6 weeks later.
Can they do both the exams or they are?
So we really can't. Okay, the students really like this because they can go for the first exam, they decide, I'm not ready, they don't go. Right, yeah, they can do, okay, you can do one exam, and so if you do the first exam, you're like normal, right? But if you can't make it and you're slow, you can actually opt to take the second exam. And basically the grade you get is the grade that you choose. Okay, so you don't get to do both exams and choose the better grade. You get to choose which exam to take, right? And this actually helps. The trouble is that this happened during COVID. But the reason why you can do it during COVID is because in COVID, everything was online, right? So you could also do it more easily. But overall, this is not sufficient, but it's helpful. So we found that generally the students appreciated it, definitely liked it, okay? But generally a lot of work for us as well, okay? Now, the other thing is this, the question that you would have, if you're paying attention, is that why do we need to pace the fast students? Why don't you just give them everything and they do it at their own pace? Actually, we tried it before also. Trouble with that is that the fast students, right, would actually rush and they'll burn out. So interestingly, it's not obvious, but even for the fast students, you need to pace them so they can learn properly. Okay, because fast students often get very excited by the experience points and they rush through, make a lot of mistakes. Whereas if you pace them, they do better. Right, so this is what we did. And the key insight is that if you do everything online, you can do better. Okay, so I tell you what we're doing next. Okay, so the next thing is the following. This is how we teach intro programming. We have topics, right? And what is a topic? A topic essentially is a collection of learning objectives, right? There's some time you need to finish the exam or finish the class. And then there's homeworks, right? And potentially there are multiple ways to teach the same topic, right? So this is how I look at essentially a kind of a learning block, right? You tell the students what they need to learn, okay? You ask them to check whether they understood what you need to learn, right? So you can think of it as some kind of a flow chart, right? If you teach them something, you check if they don't understand it, you teach them again a different way, right? And this is how you can think of organizing essentially the learning, right? And think of it as a choose your adventure. So what we're going to do next is to build some kind of a learning tutor. Okay, I was just sharing with Zatesh that I have a student that is actually building this software to help people train these large language models. He was telling me that the most common app today is virtual girlfriends. So interestingly, LLMs are very good at simulating this human interaction. So we're planning to build a Telegram-like interface that will talk to the students and teach them some things. Now, but obviously, if you just do a simple, like a flow chart like that, it's not going to work, right? Because what we're going to do is that we're going to allow the student to interact with the system, and it's possible that you may have unexpected responses. Then you have a human, the teacher is still there, right? The teacher would then interact with the student and intervene and answer the questions. But guess what? We have everything, right? So this becomes part of my system. So over time, we will have this learning map that will actually be built, okay, and will improve based on the directions, okay? And we also embed the personalized timeline that we just saw earlier. So it means that it's not just about the flowing through the chart. There's also the time that you can, how long it takes is also going to vary depending on how fast you learn, okay? And another thing we realized is that because we have all the materials for the class, we can actually use the LM to generate essentially a kind of first cut, basic linear kind of learning map. So it means that it's easier for teachers to run this thing and then modify the learning map. Okay, so this is something that we're building. Okay, the context that we're going to apply this is in online teaching, and CET is adult learners. So adult learners have a hard time because of the time constraints, right? And remedial, I was just sharing with Zatesh that some of the students have trouble catching up, right? And we want a way to allow them to catch up, okay, that doesn't require super amount of human intervention, okay? And let me tell you my vision. So I've taught intro programming for many years, right? One of the things that we have discovered is that in 13 weeks of a semester, there are students that cannot learn it in time. It's just too short. So the current situation whereby we make students learn programming in one semester, frankly, is just terrible for some people, right? So my long-term goal is to convert this teaching of programming into some kind of a self-learning kind of pipeline where, I have an agent that leads you along. The teacher can intervene and check on you, right? But what we'll have is periodically we have this, every 3 months, maybe you have an exam. Think of it as a driving test. So I actually don't care when you pass the driving test, right? So you can take the exam once, you can take the exam 3 times, okay? All we care about as a school is that you learn the materials, okay? So we are moving towards this goal. And part of the reason why we're doing this is also because of load. Because my school is School of Computing. Now every single student in NUS probably needs to learn programming. Probably 80% of them need to learn programming, and it's all our problem. So this is also part of our attempt at survival, right? Because the load is kind of crushing. Great. So the question is, why do we need to teach differently? Well, actually, the reason is very simple. It's because the students today have changed. It means that the students that I used to teach when I started teaching in 2006 are not the same as the ones that we've seen after COVID, right? So fundamentally, a lot of these things we're doing now is actually to figure out how we can teach the students better, right? And Holy Grail is to be able to do this fully personalized learning at scale, right? All right, so this is my second story. Okay, so the last story I want to talk about is this principle of life cannot all be about money and careers, right? Even though CS is around very high-paying nature, okay? So this is where I went to school, right? And this was, okay, in 2001, I went back to grad school, okay? Now, so this is MIT, is next to Boston, right? 77 Mass F, okay. Along Mass F, right, where MIT sits, is this particular building, okay? This is Salvation Army. It's actually a church, right? It's a church. But this building is not just a church, right? It's actually also a homeless shelter. So these are the homeless people in the shelter. So what happens is that there's this homeless problem in the US. Boston is cold, right? So these people need a place to stay, right? So the shelter provides them with temporary housing during the winter. It also provides them with food, right? Meals and everything, right? The trouble is that, okay, this is the problem. They have food provided. They also have like dental services. They have socks, right? And they need to keep track of who eats what, okay? And what they used to do was they have this sign-up sheet. And unfortunately, because of that, Donald Duck and Bill Clinton comes to lunch quite often. Okay, so they were like really upset that, you're signing off random people, right? So, and then this is the kitchen, right? So I was there, so they made me, this is actually depressing. Because it reminds me that I was young and handsome once, now I'm old and I'm like, okay, but this was me, okay? And the left one is me in my room writing the software, and here is me deploying the software inside the server room, right? And what we did was we built a system whereby the homeless shelter issued every client with a card, right? And the thing that this lady is holding is this thing called Palm Pilot. You guys know what Palm Pilot is, right? I think that most of you have too young to know this. But there's once the kind of like mobile device before today's smartphones. It's still called Palm Pilot, right? And so what we did was that we installed a barcode scanner and we built this system for them. Yeah, so it worked very well, right? And other than this collection system, it was also like a hotel booking system because they had beds. And as a homeless guy, you can say, I'm going to come in Thursday night to Friday night, it's like a hotel system. So we built that for them. So this was me. This is what I did. One of the things I did in grad school, a bit random. Okay, this is the team that built with me. We finished this project in 2002, right? So fast forward 4 years, I finished grad school, went back to NUS as a prof, right? It turns out that, interestingly, there was a student that came to me and asked me, hey, prof, I want to build software for charities. I'm like, wow, really? Okay. Well, it turns out I know how it's done, right? Okay. So interestingly, then I became a full-time prof, part-time beggar. So I went around asking for funds because this is the problem, right? This software that we're building is actually not trivial, right? We need full-time work on it. And so what happens is that we have these students build this software during the summer. Okay, the trouble with summer is that, many of the students that want to do this are foreign students. So normally summer is expensive for them, right? So we need to figure out how to pay them. So I raise funds for them to basically pay them stipends so that they can survive and pay for rent during the summer. Okay, and this is the first system we built, which is this system. Okay, what we have in Singapore are these centers called the neighborhood links. Essentially, we have these facilities. The older people can come, they can do different things in their activities. In the past, what they had was that they have these cards, and there's a guy at the counter who actually tracks the cards and figures out who comes to the class, to the center. We built essentially the same thing I built before, which is that now they can essentially have a membership card, there's a barcode scanner, and then they can kind of sign in, right? And they do different things there, they do karaoke, they do foot massage, you know. So essentially, the center needs to report the statistics to the government, right, because they're funded by the government. So they need to report every 3 months, every quarter, who comes in and what services they actually use, right? So we built this for them and many others. So over the years, this is 2006-07, right? So we've worked with many charities. Today, we still work with 5 of them, right? And these are some of the projects that we've built over the years. So we build projects every summer. And so far, I've raised actually about $750 million USD. But this is like over like 16 years, right? And we delivered. But interestingly, if you value the amount of IT resources that we have given to the charities, it will be many times more than the money I raised, right? Because we can do it on the cheap, right? Okay, and these are not regular people. These are the best students that we have. So many of these guys that work for me in the summer, they end up going to Google, Facebook, the big tech companies. So these are students that will never work for charities because they're too highly paid, right? But because they're in school, I make them do work for charities. So this works out. Okay, so we've built over the years 12 to 30 systems. Today, I still run 4 of them, okay? These are my 5 clients. There are only 5 clients here, but they actually manage many centers, okay? We estimate that we service about 10,000 beneficiaries among the 5 charities. And so far, we've trained about 280 students over this program, all right? This is actually a kind of a live demo of us tracking the activity of the various systems we have for line befrienders, okay? So what's the lesson here? Okay, so the point is that I make students do work for charities, but it's very practical work because they're building real software that actually gets deployed, okay? And actually, the lesson that I wanted to learn in this whole business is that technical problems are actually easy. The real problems, when they grow up, are people problems. Okay, it's really difficult to work with our clients, and charities are at a different level. Okay, so this is something that was very, very good in terms of the pedagogy, right? Learning how to build software. Okay, and really, my belief is that education needs to go beyond just career success. And interestingly, many of my students are, okay, you guys are LUMS, so many of you are rich, right? I was trying to talk to Zatesh. So we also have many rich students that have never seen poor people, right? So as part of this whole process, right, I kind of force them to go work with the charities and actually get to meet some poor people so they understand that society is not as rosy as they may seem, okay? After many years, this is now a new center. So in addition to the AI Center for Education Technologies, I also now run this center called the Center for Computing for Social Good. Okay, this is our Deputy Prime Minister. He opened my center in 2001. Right, so now our center does 2 things. We also do leadership development, right? So it means that we don't think that it's just enough to build the soft skills. We also want to make sure that these students of us have the right ethos of service, okay? So we have a leadership program, okay? But we can't, okay, so we have a class. I actually run a class every year, right, whereby we teach them leadership principles in the classroom, but it's not good enough. Okay, the real crux of this program is actually leadership coaching. So I actually we actually engage coaches to provide coaching to our students. Right? Frankly, we're investing about 2,000 USD per student. Yeah, but it sounds a lot of money, but it's not. If one of the students, make like $1 billion, it's a new building for us. I think of it as investment. Okay, I'm like VC, right? But investing in people. Okay. All right, and we also have this thing called Public Service Fellowship, whereby if there are projects that would serve the community, they can come to us for funding. Okay, we can give them a little grant. Okay, we also have a mentorship program where we engage like the industry to come and talk to them. And in fact, some of these kids have found some internships through these mentors. Okay, so this is something that we're doing for our students. So all in all, yeah. What's the moral of the story? Okay? So the story was that, what do we do about AI-driven future, right? And I think for us at NUS, I think we have done quite a decent job over the years. So much so that we're not really worried about this future, right? Because why? Okay, so this is the question that I tried to answer. Why is it that we think that it's okay, right? Because actually, one of the things that traditionally schools have done is teach students how to do the things right, which is fair. I mean, you give them a question, a problem, they give the answer, it's kind of exam, right? Okay, but because of these things that we've done in the past, of the past few years, we are now actually focused on the following, which is that we are trying to make sure they do the right things, right? So between doing the right things not very well, or passably, versus doing the wrong things perfectly, we prefer them to do the right things, right? And also to ask the right questions, right? And it's important, okay, that we focus not just on technical skills, but also on actually the people skills. Okay, and to end, I think it's not just about technical skills. Because you guys are the cleverest people in Pakistan, right? LUMS, we're the top school in NUS, in Singapore. I think our students need not only be successful, but I hope that they also grow up to be good people and to contribute to society and to the country. So on that basis, we also try to make sure that the right values. Okay, and with that, I think we're done. Thank you. I'm happy to take questions.
The floor is open for questions.
Yeah.
Do you have any?
I hope you don't mind if I take off my jacket. It's really kind of warm. Yeah. Yes. Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure if it's a question or it is. It's an eye-opener for us. I, being the director of LUMS Learning Institute, I just saw that how far we are from where we want LUMS to be after hearing this talk, to be honest. We are still struggling with informing our instructors how to engage students in class, and what you talked was way ahead of that, where we are right now. Anyway, so I'll just, so thank you very much for this eye-opener talk.
Thank you.
Very good talk.
Hamid.
My question is, how do you handle AI in introduction to programming course? I know you talked about right things and things right. I get that, but I think eventually every intro to programming assignment can be done by ChatGPT. So how do you take care of this thing in your course?
Okay, so the question, just for the audience, is that unfortunately, as I alluded to, ChatGPT has ingested like the whole of Stack Overflow. So pretty much every intro programming class assignment can be solved, right? So the answer is very simple, which is that I think the control is in the exams. So like I saw my driving test, right? So the truth is this, yeah, they can go and use ChatGPT to submit homework. And sadly, I admitted quite bluntly to some students earlier, we tried catching them. What we did this past semester was that every homework, I got my TA to cut and paste the ChatGPT, take the answer of ChatGPT, and then compile it into a student submission to submit into a plagiarism checker. Okay, and I checked that with my students. And guess what? We caught nobody. But I am almost, I am sure, given the three honest people here, that we have students using ChatGPT, but it's just really hard to catch them, right? And so I think the catching them for plagiarism is going to be a challenge, and I suspect we will not succeed. It's also an arms race. But ultimately, we control the exam, right? We control how we examine them. So what we want to do is that we will lock them in a room, okay, control everything, and have them solve problems on the fly. Okay, I mean, this is for two things, for fairness, right? And actually to force them to learn. Because ultimately, if the students know, they'll be locked in the room without ChatGPT. Well, the clever ones will know that they should better learn how to do it without ChatGPT. And the ones that actually don't figure it out, then we'll figure out who they are. So I think there is no, it all depends on what your goals are. But I think that fighting, banning ChatGPT and disallowing it is really not a solution. I think ChatGPT is something like death and taxes. You need to learn to live with it, right? And I think the way that we want to do it is to do it through moral suasion. Tell the students that there's a problem. And let me tell another story that's important to highlight this point. So I run an AI center, right? And we have interns, right? So the way we hire interns is much like a company. They come and then we actually do live coding test. I mean, I have engineers, they come before the engineer on Zoom, they do an interview, right? And these like the normal interviews, they have to solve a problem on the fly using the, not whiteboard, but through the online interface, right? And my engineer is like, hey, this guy can't do his syntax right. He was trying to solve it in Python, and like the colons are missing. I'm like, what the hell? I mean, this guy is like a second-year student, right? And like, you can't even get your syntax right. Then he's asking him, hey, how come you can't get a syntax right? I mean, you're second year. I said, oh, ChatGPT can solve this for me. So apparently, there are some of these kids that actually cannot even get the syntax right. They cut and paste in ChatGPT and cut and paste the answers. Well, they can do the homework, but frankly, guess what? He didn't get a job, right? So we tell the stories to scare them, not scare them, to tell them the reality, which is that if you want to have a software job, you cannot get syntax right? And you use ChatGPT, you will never be able to debug things in time. You will never get jobs, right? So I think the fact is that while there's issues, I think the market is not stupid. I mean, the people who hire, they will be testing them, and I think what's going to happen is that hiring is going to get more expensive because a lot of the online tests now you really cannot control for cheating. But nevertheless, given that this is a problem, I think what's going to happen is that industry will be much more vigilant. So it's very hard probably to get a job if they don't know what they're doing. So I guess my response is that we make sure our exams are fair. Okay, otherwise students get really upset, right? And the other thing that we do is to talk to them and to try to convince them that it's bad. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Dr. Leong, for such an insightful and such an engaging presentation. What I particularly liked was the authentic and the English in education literature lingo. The examples that you use for assessing the students is authentic and renewable assessments, where I really liked how you used real-life context of using softwares where students get a chance to build softwares for charities, and I really like that.
Yep.
Talk about impact, where you said that, okay, 10,000 beneficiaries with 200 plus students who've been trained.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for these examples, because as a faculty development lead, I now have taken those notes and I can now kind of consult faculty and give them these examples.
Yep.
So that's quite fascinating, and thank you so much for sharing. I have two questions.
Sure.
The first is related to your presentation. The second is a separate question.
Sure.
The first question is, I didn't really catch the point where you talked about the learning maps, and if you could please elaborate on that.
Okay.
And the second question is, what do you think is the future of workforce or higher education, for that matter, in the age of AI?
The future of
Workforce, like the work for skills, perhaps. What do you think would be the skills then required in the age of AI, and what do you think is the future of the higher education in the age of AI?
Okay, so there are two questions. First question is that I wasn't very clear on my learning map, right? So, okay, the point is that we're building we're not building a virtual girlfriend, we're building something like a virtual prof, right? So the idea is that the students today are on Telegram, right? Okay, and essentially there's going to be you're going to subscribe to this channel, and there's going to be the prof talking to them about what they need to learn. And the learning map is really how we can basically take the material that we need to teach the students in the class and lay it out in a way that makes sense. So that's the learning map. I'm just explaining to you, this is how we're thinking about laying out the learning and the teaching outcomes, right? And how we then execute the entire thing in software. I think my colleagues here will fully understand. I'm so sorry, maybe I've just kind of lost you because I wasn't aware of that, it's not very technical, but it's really how we will let teachers lay out how they want to teach the students, and we will be able to actuate that in software. Okay, so that's the first question. Now, the second question is really, what's the impact of AI on the workforce, right? That's an excellent question. So another thing I do is I talk to a lot of people, right? One of the guys that I talked to quite early in this conversation is actually the managing director of Goldman Sachs in Singapore. So he runs Goldman Sachs, right? And I said, hey, so AI is coming. Are you guys going to fire people? I was quite point blank. He said, no, okay? Because okay, time out. First of all, ChatGPT did destroy a lot of jobs, many jobs. Many of them are in India, right? Because the way it works is that the way the jobs work is that there's a pyramid, right? Okay, sadly, there's a lot of low skill outsourcing, and most of it's India, right? And I think India was quite badly hit. The many jobs were lost. Now, Singapore is really expensive, right? Because Singapore is really expensive, these jobs cannot exist in Singapore. So to be honest, ChatGPT has got no real impact in Singapore in terms of the economy, except for cheating in exams, in the homework, right? Now, for the jobs, so I was talking to the MD of Goldman Sachs. He was telling me, Ben, this is how companies work. we actually have infinite many things we want to do. It means they have a lot of things they want to do, but they couldn't do it. Why? Because not enough manpower. So they have a whole list of things they want to do that they have not been able to do because of lack of manpower. What they expect from ChatGPT and GPT AI is they expect the current people to do more so that they have a smaller, backlog. So the truth is that for the lower end jobs, which hopefully is nothing to do with LUMS, I mean, you guys cannot belong to that tier, right? So at some level, I think you have nothing to worry about. Okay, so you probably will be playing the same league as NUS and the colleges, so you're in the upper tier. In that tier, well, just be willing to work harder when you grow up and have a job, because the bosses expect you to do more, right? So interestingly, I don't think the loss of jobs for the top colleges is really a problem. It's just that with this AI tools, the employers will expect people to be more productive, to do more for less. So that's a real, so it's not so bad, yeah. And software, like I said, if you actually run software and run a software team, you realize that frankly, writing the code is the easy part. It's really all the human interactions, your clients, you need to deal with clients, the clients cannot agree, your teams are fighting, all these kinds of human problems that are actually much more complicated. And that's what people are paying you for, not for writing software, frankly. I hope this helps. Yeah, thank you.
We have one question online as well.
Yes.
Or you could go.
So you just said that writing code is the easier part, right?
Yes.
And at the same time, we are trying to stop the use of ChatGPT, like let's say for students. But don't you see this as a big technological advancement for mankind?
Rewind. We are not trying to stop the use of ChatGPT for students, right? We've surrendered, right? Okay. But what we're trying to convince students is that the employers are not stupid, right? They know that some students are using ChatGPT. But what employers are trying to hire for are people who can do the debugging, have the skill, right? So use ChatGPT, I'll tell you, is not to your advantage because you have deprived yourself of the learning, right? So that's that. But that said, okay, I must tell you another story. When I was young, I think when Zatesh was young, we wrote code using a text editor. And GCC minus A, oh my God. I mean, now you have IDEs, right? Okay, and you control space, right? Autocompletes, right? Now, GPT is really like autocomplete, like next generation, right? So you can have whole bunch of code. But that doesn't mean you don't need to know what's going on. Right? You still need to understand how the code works. And you cannot shove the whole entire GitHub repository into ChatGPT to get the answer and debug. It doesn't work that way. So it means that the skill set that we have is still going to be relevant for a very long time. Right? And communicating the needs is much harder. Figuring out what software needs to be written is much harder problem. And that is a real problem you'll be paid for when you become a software engineer, not to write the code, essentially.
Yeah, I agree with that, but let's say, but using it as a pair programmer to increase my efficiency.
That's right, it's good, it's good. Yeah, if you know how to debug your code, right, please use the tool. I mean, frankly. So I think the context needs to be clear, right? We do not want students to use ChatGPT so that they deprive themselves of the learning. But if you know what you're doing, then by all means use it to increase productivity. Hello. In fact, sorry, if you heard me, you're expected to use it when you grow up, right, to increase productivity. Right. So the days of having good time at Facebook and Google are now over. You actually expect to produce code, right? Yeah. Thank you much. The question?
So the question is from Sadia Bundal. She's asking with reference to soft skills, which soft skill according to your exemplary experience is the most important one?
Okay, first of all, I want to correct myself. I hate this thing about, I don't like this word soft skill. I think it's wrong. Okay, soft skill was the old way of referring to it. I would think of it as people skills, right? So the fact is that AI will not be very good at people skills for a very long time because people are too complicated, right? So I think what skills depends on what job that you do, right? My students have been very successful at getting the entry-level jobs. Okay, at Google and Facebook, it's like L4, right? Many of them promote to L5, which is team lead, right? And I've realized that a lot of them get stuck at L5. Means you get a job, but to be fair, they're paid very well at L5, so I don't feel so sorry for them, right? But they get stuck, right? But to go from L5 to L6 and L7, I have students at now L6 and L7, right? That requires a different level of, requires different skills, leadership skills. So actually, like I said, we have been doing leadership training for the last 3 years. So I think it all depends on the person's ambition. But if someone wants to move up in the career ladder, right, then basically you need to have leadership. You need to know how to manage teams. You need to understand how to create psychological safety in a group. Communications are really important. Writing is really important. So there are many of these skills that unfortunately we don't teach very well in school, but we are trying our best at NUS to show up those parts. Yes, sir.
As we see that currently the world is facing a big challenge, that is climate change.
Climate change.
Climate change. I want to know how education and AI as a tool will help in tackling these problems like climate change.
Your question is how will AI help tackle climate change? I think AI is causing problems, right? I mean, the data centers that run AI algorithms today are actually killing our planet. How can we help climate change shut down AI? But it's not going to happen, right? So, to be honest, I really don't know the answer to that question. But I think climate change is something that is not something that is easy solved, and actually the ones that can do it will be the government. So Singapore is going to invest $60 billion to fight climate change. We're going to build bunds. The real question I have is how willing are governments willing to invest in actually doing this? My government my government has promised to do it. Unfortunately, many governments are not actually keen. So there's a lot of talk. My sense is that I think we're going to die, but lucky for us, I think we're going to die before we're going to die. But at the current rate, I think climate change is a problem that's intractable because everybody talks about it. Nobody, I think I can see, is really keen to do anything about it, for real. So sadly, I don't really know.
About solving these problems, I would like to share it with you after this session. So we are working on an idea how AI and education technology will solve climate change problems or climate issues. So
Great. Okay, we can take this offline and discuss. But unfortunately, I don't have a solution. And I suspect that we need governments to get involved. Right. Thank you.
We have one other question.
Yes.
Zara is asking, from a general curriculum viewpoint, can Professor Leong address what would be the do's and don'ts of AI literacy for all in general?
Wow. AI literacy. That's a kind of a general question. I think the first question is this, right? How can we actually use AI better to improve our lives and improve productivity? And on that basis, I think the average audience, right, should learn to use ChatGPT. Just like in our generation, we learned how to use Google. Interestingly, many students don't know how to Google properly because ChatGPT is now the new Google. But using ChatGPT, I think is also an art because you must actually also write the right prompts, right, to get answers you want. So I think in general, the next generation of people will need to learn how to use these kinds of LMs. Think of it as a more advanced version of Google, right? And using it is also an art, and they need to learn how to write the right prompts to use it. But I think the bigger problem concern I have today is that hallucination is a huge problem. So and the problem I have is that the more accurate that the AI seems to be is a bigger problem because it allows people to thinking that everything they get from the ChatGPT is the right thing. So the real question now is, in my view, that is really urgent is how do we help people have this kind of awareness that there could be a hallucination? And if you suspect this hallucination, how are you going to have the right skill set to go and check and verify and make sure you do the right things? So as I think interestingly, the fact that the AI works so well is actually a problem because you can allow people into this thinking that things are right when they're wrong. Okay, and the other thing that's of real concern is really the use of this generative AI for very bad things like fake news. Okay, I don't know how it is in Pakistan, but scams are a real menace. Okay, now robberies are non-existent, so nobody robs anybody anymore. Right? In Singapore, we're dealing with this massive $1 billion criminal industry. And I must tell you something else about these scams. I have an ex-student who is a Facebook engineer. She's really clever. I mean, you don't become a Facebook engineer if you're stupid, right? She lost $300,000 on the scam. Okay, so those of you who think that I'm really clever, I'm from LUMS. Ooh, not gonna happen to me. I had a really clever student who is at Facebook now. Okay, and lucky for her, she's a Facebook engineer. She lost 300,000 Sing, which is 200K USD. Lucky for her, she's a Facebook engineer, so she makes enough money to make up for the loss. I mean, imagine you are just a regular guy, right? Regular salary, right? Oh my God. Okay, but even then, you know, it happens to people that are really quite clever. And because the scams today are not like, they're really sophisticated, right? I don't know the details, but this girl was my student, she was my TA, she's really clever, right? And she got scammed. Yeah, so the fact is that scams are a huge problem, and I think a lot of it is propagated by technology. Is that good?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
In your viewpoint, to what extent
Rewind, yeah.
AI is going to replace human beings in research? By research, I mean scientific research.
Do I think that AI will replace human beings in scientific research? I actually think not. Because to do well research, you need some level of creativity. I think what AI can do is, it can be some kind of an assistant, right? You can iterate faster, you can generate some things, you can test things faster, but at this point, let's be honest, right? The LUMS are not that smart, no? They're really just super parrots. They're able to ingest like just blinds of documents and then give you something that seems like it matches the humans, but it's not really, the reasoning isn't that great, at least at this point. And reasoning is not enough because research requires creativity. And at this point, I don't think AI will replace us anytime soon. At least I hope not, okay? But at least, okay, even if my research goes to hell, right, I still have teaching. I think they can't replace teachers for a very long time. Thank you. Anyone else? Questions?
I just like to add comment that the current stage of AI, I think it will be a co-creator, a
Correct.
co-writer, a co-programmer
Correct.
for a very long time.
Yeah.
Before we think about it replaces humans.
Yes.
This is what we think or we predict at this stage.
At least, yeah. So I think the way we look at it is that there's a pyramid of jobs. I think that the AI will kill off all the jobs that require you to do the things right. If you go to the next level jobs, which requires you to do the right things, that level of jobs is still quite safe. And I hope that LUMS, your train students to do that jobs instead of doing the things right, because that is a wrong thing to do, right? Because yeah. At least it's honest. We try to, yeah. All right, thank you. All right, yeah, thank you much. All right, thank you.
Dr. Ben.
Thank you. Thank you.
We would like to thank our friends at LLI, also Dr. Zartaj, for making this happen. We would also like to give a token of appreciation to Dr. Ben. Zen, our manager at LUMSx, is going to do the honors.
All right. Oh, thank you.
Thank you everyone for coming. Those of you who have any questions besides those that were asked, you can come and talk to Dr. Ben. Thank you.
Thank you.